I almost ignored the call. It was a cold Tuesday afternoon, and I was standing alone in my kitchen reheating leftover soup when my phone rang from an unknown number. Normally, I never answered calls I didn't recognize. Too many spam calls. Too many robocalls. Too many scammers pretending to be banks or insurance companies. But something about that moment felt strange before I even picked up the phone. The house was unusually quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your thoughts louder. I stared at the screen for a few seconds while the phone continued vibrating in my hand. Then I answered. Hello? The woman on the other end sounded nervous. Hello, is this Mrs. Carter? Yes. There was a short pause. Then her voice lowered slightly. Ma'am, your husband is here at the company event with a woman who looks exactly like you. At first, I honestly thought it was a prank. I even laughed a little. I'm sorry, what? She repeated herself slowly, carefully, almost like she understood how insane it sounded. He's here with a woman who looks exactly like you. My stomach tightened instantly. The woman introduced herself as Claire. She worked for the event company organizing Daniel's corporate dinner downtown. She apologized repeatedly during the call and admitted she had been debating with herself for over an hour about whether she should contact me. I know this isn't my business, she whispered nervously. But if I were in your position, I would want someone to tell me. I didn't know what to say. Daniel had told me spouses weren't invited to the event this year. He said it was strictly for executives and investors. I believed him immediately because after 11 years of marriage, trust becomes automatic. You stop questioning small things. You stop imagining betrayal because the person beside you becomes part of your routine, part of your identity. At least, that's what I believed. What exactly do you mean she looks like me? I asked quietly. Claire hesitated. She has your hair. Your smile. Your body type. Even the way she dresses reminds me of you. I forced out another nervous laugh. That's impossible. But deep down, something already felt terribly wrong. After the call ended, I stood frozen in my kitchen staring at nothing while the soup burned quietly behind me on the stove. My thoughts became louder and darker with every second. A woman who looked exactly like me. Why would another woman look like me? And why would my husband be with her? I kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe Claire exaggerated. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe Daniel was standing beside a coworker who happened to resemble me slightly. But another part of me already knew the truth. Women know. Sometimes our minds try to protect us from pain, but our instincts don't lie. I grabbed my car keys before I could change my mind and drove downtown toward the hotel hosting the event. The drive there felt unreal. My hands trembled against the steering wheel while my thoughts spiraled out of control. Every red light felt longer than usual. Every minute felt unbearable. Part of me wanted to turn around and go home. But another part of me needed to see the truth with my own eyes. The hotel was beautiful. Expensive cars lined the entrance while golden lights reflected across the glass walls. Men in tailored suits walked through the lobby beside women covered in jewelry and expensive perfume. Everything looked perfect from the outside. That's the thing about betrayal. It usually hides behind beautiful appearances. I walked through the lobby trying to control my breathing. My chest felt tight with anxiety as I followed the sound of music toward the ballroom. And then I saw him. Daniel. Standing near the center of the room laughing with coworkers. For a second, relief washed over me. He looked normal. Relaxed. Familiar. Then I saw her. And suddenly my entire body went cold. Claire hadn't exaggerated at all. The resemblance was terrifying. The woman standing beside Daniel looked close enough to me that it felt disturbing. Same dark hair. Same makeup style. Same height. Same body type. Even the dress she wore was dark green, my favorite color. The same color Daniel once told me made me look unforgettable. It wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate. That realization hurt more than the cheating itself. Because affairs can happen impulsively. But this? This looked planned. Carefully chosen. Like he searched for someone built from pieces of me. I watched from across the room as Daniel leaned close to her ear. She laughed softly at whatever he whispered. Then he rested his hand against her lower back exactly the way he used to touch me in public. And then he kissed her. Everything inside me stopped. The music faded into the background. Conversations blurred into meaningless noise. I just stood there staring at my husband kissing a woman designed to resemble me. Someone nearby asked if I was okay, but I couldn't respond. I turned around and walked out before Daniel could see me. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the door. I sat there gripping the steering wheel while tears burned in my eyes. Not loud dramatic crying. Just silent shock. The kind of pain that makes your body feel numb. My phone rang 10 minutes later. Daniel. I stared at his name glowing on the screen while my chest tightened painfully. For 11 years, I answered every single call from that man. That night, for the first time, I let it ring. When he came home after midnight, he acted completely normal. That was the most disturbing part. He walked through the front door loosening his tie and complaining about traffic like he hadn't just shattered my entire reality. He kissed my forehead gently. Asked if I was asleep. And I kept my eyes closed because I was afraid if I looked at him, I would completely fall apart. The next morning, something inside me changed permanently. I stopped reacting emotionally. I started observing. Once suspicion enters a marriage, every little detail becomes impossible to ignore. I noticed the expensive cologne he recently started wearing. The sudden obsession with the gym. The secretive behavior with his phone. The late-night texting. The way he smiled at his screen when he thought I wasn't paying attention. The business trips that suddenly became more frequent. The emotional distance I had been trying to ignore for months. The signs had always been there. I just trusted him enough not to see them. For the next 2 weeks, I stayed quiet. I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I watched. Because people reveal everything when they think you know nothing. I started collecting little pieces quietly without him realizing it. Receipts left inside pockets. Hotel confirmations sent to his email. Restaurant reservations for 2. Charges from places he never took me anymore. And slowly, the truth became impossible to deny. Daniel wasn't having a random affair. He was living a second relationship. One night, while he showered upstairs, his phone lit up beside me on the bed. Normally, I would never touch his phone. But nothing about our marriage was normal anymore. I picked it up. One message. One photo. And my blood ran cold instantly. It was her. Standing inside my bedroom mirror. Wearing my robe. My robe. The caption underneath the picture read. Can't wait until she's finally gone. Gone. That word echoed through my mind repeatedly. Gone? Did she mean divorce? Or something worse? For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt genuine fear. Because suddenly this wasn't just cheating anymore. This woman wasn't trying to steal my husband. She was trying to become me. I barely slept that night. Every sound inside the house made me anxious. Every movement from Daniel beside me felt unfamiliar. The next morning, he smiled at me over breakfast while drinking coffee like he wasn't living a double life. And something inside me hardened permanently. Over the next week, I started remembering things I had ignored for months. The strange perfume smell on his jackets. The random showers immediately after coming home. The fact that he suddenly cared about whitening his teeth. The way he became protective over his phone battery percentage because he didn't want me touching it. The excuses. The distance. The lies. I remembered the nights I sat beside him on the couch while he smiled down at his phone pretending he was reading work emails. I remembered asking him if he still loved me once during dinner months ago. And I remembered how quickly he answered yes without even looking up from his screen. That memory hurt the most. Because now I realized he had already emotionally left the marriage long before I discovered the affair. 3 days later, Daniel told me he had another business dinner. I smiled politely and told him to drive safely. Then I waited exactly 5 minutes after he left before grabbing my keys and following him. He drove across town to a luxury apartment complex near the river. I parked far enough away that he wouldn't notice my car. Then I watched him walk confidently into the building like he had done it many times before. My heart pounded violently inside my chest while I followed him inside a few minutes later. Apartment 407. I stood outside the door listening to muffled laughter from inside. Her laughter. I knocked slowly. Silence. Then footsteps approached. The door opened. And the woman nearly dropped her wine glass when she saw me. For the first time, she stood face to face with the real version of the woman she had been copying. Daniel appeared behind her seconds later. The color drained from his face immediately. Nobody spoke at first. The silence felt suffocating. Then I finally looked directly at him and asked the only question that mattered. "How long have you been trying to replace me?" Daniel instantly started stuttering excuses. But she didn't. She stared at me calmly. Coldly. Then she said something I will never forget for the rest of my life. "He told me you stopped being the woman he married years ago." That sentence hurt more than discovering the affair itself. Because after everything I sacrificed for that marriage, after supporting him through difficult years, after building my entire life around him, he reduced me to a comparison. A failed version of someone younger and newer. I expected to scream. I expected rage. But instead, I felt strangely calm. Because in that moment, something became painfully clear. This had nothing to do with me. People who are truly happy don't build replacements for the people they love. Broken people do that. I slowly removed my wedding ring. Walked into the apartment. And placed it carefully on the kitchen counter between them. Then I looked directly at Daniel. "You spent years searching for another version of me," I said quietly. My voice barely shook. "But you destroyed the original." Neither of them spoke. I turned around and walked out of that apartment without looking back. And honestly, that was the moment my life finally began again. The divorce process lasted 8 exhausting months. 8 months filled with lawyers, paperwork, lies, humiliation, and painful conversations with family members who suddenly wanted details about a marriage they never truly understood. Daniel tried apologizing eventually. Not immediately. At first, he blamed stress. Then he blamed work pressure. Then he blamed emotional distance between us. People like Daniel always search for explanations that protect their own image. But eventually, when the reality of losing everything became real, he started begging. Late-night phone calls. Long emotional messages. Promises to change. Promises to start therapy. Promises to become a better man. But by then, something inside me had already died permanently. You can forgive certain mistakes, but you can never fully recover from realizing someone studied your habits, your personality, your appearance, and then searched for another human being to imitate you. That changes something deep inside a person. The divorce finalized quietly 8 months later. And do you know the strangest part? 3 months after our divorce, Danielle cheated on her too. I found out through a mutual friend. Apparently the relationship collapsed exactly the same way ours did. Lies. Secrets. Late nights. Another woman. Because men like Daniel are never truly searching for love. They're searching for distraction, validation, excitement. And eventually, they destroy everything they touch. Meanwhile, I slowly rebuilt myself. I moved to another city closer to the ocean. I cut my hair shorter. Started therapy. Started reading again. Started sleeping peacefully again. For the first time in years, I stopped trying to become the version of myself that kept everyone else comfortable. I began waking up early just to walk beside the beach before sunrise. I started noticing small beautiful things again. The smell of coffee shops in the morning. The sound of waves hitting the shore. The feeling of silence without anxiety. I realized how exhausted I had become inside that marriage. How much energy I spent trying to hold together something that had already broken long ago. And one night, while sitting alone in my new apartment drinking tea beside an open window, I realized something unexpected. That woman saved me. Not intentionally. Not kindly. But she forced me to see the truth about my marriage. About myself. About how much of my identity I had buried trying to keep someone else happy. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy you. Sometimes it introduces you to the person you were always supposed to become. And honestly, I'll never forget that phone call. Not because it ruined my life, but because it gave me my life back.